She was admitted to hospital and rapidly went downhill. Once admitted on oxygen, then various progressively more severe stages, ventilators, and eventually it was becoming sort of a life-threatening situation for her and our unborn baby.
Imagine being told to prepare for the worst. A doctor tells you that your pregnant partner and the unborn baby inside her are unlikely to survive. That's what Tommy Larkins was told.
It was terrifying. Most terrifying thing I've been through in my life. It was awful. To potentially lose the pair of them on the same night was really bad, really bad.
Elsa became critically ill with COVID-19 just after Christmas.
Are you carrying on with that then?
Heavily pregnant, she was rushed to Kingston Hospital. Her health deteriorated quickly, and she was moved to one of the hospital's 2 intensive care units. Here, she was put into a coma and intubated.
Elsa spent 2 weeks in intensive care on this ward, and with a desperately sick mother, there are always concerns about the unborn child.
Elsa was one of the unit's youngest patients. At just 34, she had no underlying health conditions, but she was carrying a baby.
Being told potentially to say your last goodbyes to your other half and to your baby as well. You know, your world comes crashing down.
Is that possible? How long are you off sick for? 2 weeks from today.
Difficult conversations are happening all the time.
I'll let you know. Okay, have you got any beds yet? No, not yet. Alison's just gone to the office to sort it out.
A relentless flood of sick patients needing expert care.
Okay, so the answer is please don't let them take any staff from you without going through me, yeah? Because I've been fighting.
It never stops.
So I've been here for about half an hour. Every time I've seen you, you're on the phone, people are coming up to you. It's so busy.
We're double the normal capacity, and the patients are a lot sicker than we normally see. Staff shortages, our staff are sick, or they're shielding because their families are shielding as well. So that makes it more difficult for us.
This must put a lot of pressure on you and your team. All the time, it's constant.
Yeah, everybody, very constant, and things like that you don't imagine, you don't even think about, the number of medicines we need. We don't have enough cupboard space, we don't have enough space for all the equipment to store it. We're having to swap ventilators around because we've obviously had to get new ventilators in. Yeah, we'll take this to his arm.
For the staff here on the front line, the pressure is constant. It is taking its toll.
Ventilator.
Yeah, ventilator.
Okay, oxygen. Yeah, some PRVC.
How long, seriously, do you think you can carry on at this rate?
I think we're on our knees. We're all trying to be very positive. I have staff who phone up in tears. They can't come into the building, so we have to send another nurse out to go and pick them up. I think once they're here, it's not so bad. It's the thought of how am I going to cope looking after that many patients and support staff.
You all right? Can you hear me?
He's not.
Yes.
He will before we come back.
All right, it's one of the doctors here. You're at Kingston Hospital. Right, you're just waking up and coming round. You're doing really, really well. Can you give my hand a squeeze? Just let me know you can hear me. Squeeze hard. Excellent, well done.
We don't need to worry about anything to do with it until it bleeps.
The pressure is being felt right through the hospital.
Once it bleeps, all right?
This is one of its high dependency wards. Very sick COVID patients who need help to breathe are sent here. Beds are at a premium.
I just wanted to let you guys know we've got our environmental oxygen monitor up and running at our panel.
And it's difficult to predict demand.
I worked the weekend and it was a nice steady weekend. We were looking after the patients that are coming off the back of the Christmas and New Year peak. and it was nice and calm. We never used the quiet word in the NHS. And then today, we've had an awful lot of admissions straight through A&E, unusually for this surge, that have needed ventilation, either invasive or non-invasive. I've got to be honest, it's been really, really hard, like any hospital in London, but we are making capacity. All of our staff have worked extra shifts to man up the additional care needs that these patients need.
Rini has been on this unit for 1 week. Her battle with COVID, she tells me, took her to hell, and she's not sure she's back.
How are you feeling?
A lot better. I thought I was dead. I've never had pain like that in my life. And these nurses to get me through, and doctors, I cannot believe what they did to me. When I was 76, I've got COPD, and I still got through. They're marvellous people. It's always worse off than me, darling. People come in every day and you're seeing me think, God, I was like you. God, you know, I still trust you today, and I'm thinking.
Your family must be very worried about you.
Absolutely, I've got a lot of family.
They're terrified.
My daughter was asked to come up to the hospital to say goodbye to me with my son, because I might be dying. That's how ill I was.
Did they come and see you?
They did.
Tommy had the same devastating conversation with his family. He broke the news to his girls, Melissa and Alba.
It's a potential that Mummy's on a knife edge. Well, I'm sure she's going to be okay. She's a fighter. She will be home. But just to let them know, make them aware, because they're a bit older, so make them aware that we all need to hope.
On January the 5th, the decision was taken to deliver Elsa and Tommy's baby by emergency C-section, a full 2 months before the baby was due. The operation could save Elsa's life, but it carried a huge risk.
Absolutely petrified. You know, the baby, it was due in March, the second week of March. You know, to have an emergency C-section, a baby potentially born with COVID. It was awful. But, you know, the baby's going to come out, whether she's going to make it or not. She's going to have to put herself on a ventilator, breathing apparatus. It was all very dark. It was all quite a horrible place to be in.
Gag Sekon is one of the critical care nurses who cared for Elsa.
Thankfully, we haven't seen many pregnant ladies, but Elsa was particularly sick when she came in. She was really struggling to breathe. I think the difficulty with that was the fact that she was heavily pregnant. The big bump that she had due to the pregnancy was obviously pushing on the bottom of her lungs. So as COVID had infected her lungs, she was finding it difficult to breathe anyway. And then with the added pressure of the baby squeezing on the bottom of her lungs, it was making it even more difficult for her to breathe. So she did require quite a lot of support all the time that she was here.
Elsa's condition worried Gags, not just because she was his patient, but also because he is expecting a baby too.
If I'm honest, it was really, really frightening because my wife is actually 36 weeks pregnant. So a few weeks further on than Elsa is, and she's also a nurse. I'm an intensive care nurse, and when she came in, I saw how unwell Elsa was. And if I'm completely honest, I was really, really quite frightened.
Lovely. And any other problem you might be concerned about?
When beds are in such high demand, capacity must be managed.
And usually he's quite independent. He lived with the QDS package of care, but independent otherwise, mobility-wise.
Hospital and local GPs working together to find answers to the crisis.
She's typical of the patients you look at to discharge back into primary care.
Some of them are off oxygen, some are still on oxygen, but so long as they're continuing to be weaned off, then there are support services in the community to be able to pick them up.
Things like sending people home on oxygen is really something we've looked at in the second wave because bed occupancy has been so much higher. So obviously.
So we're looking at trying to get you home with some support services, okay? So we just need to ask you a few questions to make sure that you're suitable.
Before you came into hospital, otherwise you were well and you didn't walk with a stick or a frame. But at the moment, you're needing some assistance to get around.
Well, not really, because my husband will be there.
Okay.
So he'll be full-time there with me.
Okay.
The family must have been very worried about you.
They were worried. You know, I come from a big family, and all the time I was getting emails saying, you know, hurry up, pull through, pull through. But my husband always said I had a stubborn streak. I think you know when you've been here long enough and you need to get back to your family. Yeah.
And you're ready for that now?
I'm ready for that. I'm ready.
Sam, you're ready for your bed already?
For uncertain patients, the familiarity of a GP brings extra reassurance.
I think if you see an awful lot of patients, they've got COVID, they're in an unfamiliar surrounding, they've got oxygen, they've had loads of medications, they're on drips, they're scared, okay? So a lot of patients are scared, and so to be able to reassure them that there are people who are going to know them in the community to be able to pick them up.
Penelope will soon go home, but for some patients, the waiting goes on. Tommy's partner, Elsa, is not in intensive care anymore, but she is still COVID positive.
Hello. Is it too brave?
And this is their new baby, a little girl. Elsa and Tommy's daughter weighs just 1.4 kilograms and needed life support in those first few critical weeks.
Day by day, hour by hour. She had ups and downs. So she only needed a small ventilator tube in her nose to begin with. Then a day or so later, a full ventilator was put on, and she's tiny. She's still tiny. Basically, a ventilator the same size as her body attached to her, and seeing her like that, God, it's heartbreaking. Heartbreaking.
Tommy has been allowed to visit his daughter and partner on compassionate grounds.
After seeing her so weak and poorly in an incubator, to holding her a couple of days ago was amazing, amazing. Best feeling. To come through and see that light at the end of the tunnel, it was amazing. And we've still got a little way to go, still not out of the woods. The effects could stay with both of them, or maybe Elsa more for a long while yet. So hopefully we keep pushing forward, and she keeps fighting.
Elsa has yet to meet her beautiful, tiny, fragile daughter. It could be weeks before all three are home together. The pandemic baby who survived against all odds has a name.
Hello.
She's called Florence, a tribute to the nurses and doctors who saved her and her mother's life. Ashish Joshi, Sky News at Kingston Hospital.